All right, I picked this puzzle, 13922, because it starts off looking easy and it actually requires some complicated strategy to solve. First thing you notice is you have this one long shape, and you know there have to be two stars in the shape. Two stars in every shape, two stars in every row, and two stars in every column. Because there are going to be two stars in here, you know that blocks off all the rest of these, because there can't be any more stars in this row. That means these two stars are going to be right here, which also tells you can block off the spaces above them, because one of the stars has to be in those two and one of the stars has to be in those two, and no matter what, there can't be a star in any of those because it would be touching. And because that's two stars in a row, you can block off the rest of that row. Now this one's not quite so easy. So the idea here is to try to block off what you can to make these shapes smaller and smaller. For example, in this space right here, you cannot have a star because it would wipe out all of that shape, all this part of the shape, and that doesn't leave room for two stars to be in the puzzle. It's the same for this spot right here. It would wipe out all, if there were a star here, it would wipe out all of these spaces and not leave room for two in the puzzle. Now you can't say the same on the other side because there could be a star here and a star here. And a star here would work. Could you have a star here? Well, technically yes right now because it would wipe out all that, but that still leaves this space and that space to have stars. So then here's another interesting, always go to the smallest shapes. If you have two stars in this column, that would wipe out the rest of this column. But you could have a star here, technically, and a star here. Now, no matter what, there could be a star here and here, a star here and here, but no matter what, we know one of these two is going to have a star in it, so we can block off that. Now, we also know that one of these three is going to have a star, which means all three of those are touching this one, so we can block that out. Could we have a star here? No, because it would wipe out all of this. Now, there could be two stars in a row here, which would wipe out the rest of this column. Or there could be one star up here and one star anywhere down here. But you know there definitely has to be one star at least in this three. And when you have three in a row like that and one star, you can also block off that middle spot because all three of those are touching that. All right, we're slowly shrinking this shape, but we haven't shrunk it enough. Now this shape is interesting. We've got rid of that spot and that spot. There can't be a star here because it would wipe out all of the remaining spaces. So look, we don't have any stars yet, but at least we're wiping out a lot of spaces. So this tells us there's going to be a star in these two spots, which means we can close that. And there's going to be a star in this one, which means we can close that and block off those two. So looking at this shape right now, we know that there's going to be a star in this block of four and a star in this block of four. Could be this one and this one, or this one and that one. Could be any of the squares available. So we can't block any of them off yet. We just know that's where a star is going to be, and this is where a star is going to be. Let's go back to this shape. There's only one option. There's either a star up here and then a star down here, or there's two stars down here. Now, if there were two stars down here, here, and here, that would wipe out this space and all three of these spaces, leaving only one space for a star in this shape. So now we know it can't be both of these. One of them has to be up here. So that gives us our first star. And always remember to mark off all around the stars. My biggest mistake is not doing the diagonals sometimes. All right, we've got our star. So we know there's going to be one star in here. We also know if there's a star here, there could be a star here and here. But if there's a star here or here, then the other star would have to be over here in this left box. You cannot have a star in this box and this box, or this box. Because if there's a star over here and any one of these, it would block off this area where we know a star has to be in there. If there's a star, so there can't be a star here, or there could be a star here, here, and here. But if there's a star here and here, that would block out these spaces, and the other one would have to be here, but that would also block out this side. In other words, we don't know where the third star is. It could be here, the second star. But the only thing that makes sense is that you have to have a star here. You have to, because if you have one here, in any of these three spaces, that would wipe out this spot, and the other star would have to go here, which would wipe out those two spots. So now we are getting somewhere. Now the other thing we know is now the other star is going to be in here somewhere, and that means this whole row is finished. So we can block that off. We don't know if it's this one or this one yet. If this star is here, we touch that, that would force that to be there. Oh, don't forget this. That's what I overlooked, these diagonals on this star. That shrinks this space to only 3, and when there's only 3, they have to be there. Now look what we've done to this shape. Because this star goes here, that means we know one star has to be here. The other one's right here. Aha. There can't be a star here, because if there were a star here, it would wipe out all of this, and that does not leave space for 2 stars in that shape. We can take this spot out too, because that would wipe out all of these spaces now and not leave room for 2. In fact, we can also take out that space, because it would wipe out these 2 boxes and not leave room for 2 stars. So if there's a star here and a star here, that would wipe out this space, all 3 of those spaces. That would mean there has to be a star here, and the other star is one of these 2. Oh. In this section, if this is a star, these 2 are wiped out, and then this has to be a star. But if this is the star, that would wipe out these 2, and then this would have to be the star. So no matter what, that spot is going to get wiped out either by this star or this star. Which tells us this spot's also dead. Because a star here or here is going to wipe out that spot. Now one star on this row is here, and that means the other star has to be in one of these 2 boxes. And when that happens, you can block off the 2 that are parallel to it on both sides. So now we know we're going to have a star here and a star here horizontally. And because there's a star in those 2 spaces, you can block off the ones next to that also. We know we have one star here, and it can't be this one because that would wipe out those 2 spaces, not leaving room for 2 things. That means this star has to be here, which gives us our 2 stars inside that shape and our 2 stars in this row, meaning that's blocked off. So we're slowly getting this form cut down. It's possible to have 2 stars here, here, and here. If there's a star here, it would wipe out all 3 of these, forcing a star here and a star here, which cuts that spot off. If there's a star here, then it's impossible for it to be the star here. So let's click back, because there's no place for a second star. That's not touching this star. So let's just go back. Now that we know there's no star in this box. So that means both stars have to be in this box. And one of them can be here because there's still room for 2 stars over here. But if you put one here, it takes too many of them away. So 2 stars in that box. We know it's not going to be there. And also, we can block off the rest of the row, the column, I mean, because there are going to be 2 stars there. We don't know which 2 yet. Now we've got this broken down. So one of these 2 and one of these 2 is going to be a star. Ah, here's something. In this column, we know there can only be 1 star in this column, anywhere else in the column, because we already have 1 star. And that means if we put one here, the only other space in this shape that's not in this column is right here. So we know a star has to go there. And that means the second one has to be here. And of course that comes all the way down now that that column's complete and blocks that off. Now we've got our first star on the bottom row, which we know is there, and the second one is going to be right here, although we don't know which one yet. Now there can't be a star here because we just filled that one in. Always go all the way around your stars every time. It saves a lot of time. Now we've got a familiar shape. Now we know where the stars have to go. There can't be a star in these middle spots because it would touch all the rest of the spaces. So there has to be a star here, star here. Remember to go all the way around the stars. And then that gives us an opening here that we know has to be a star. And that seals this. So now we've got these rows. Oh, I'm blind again. I forgot to block off that space because it's adjacent to this star, which means this star has to be here. And this star has to be here. We've got column done. This column's done, 2 stars. This column needs a, oh, and that now tells us that's the other one in the shape. And of course that blocks off that column, the rest of it. And this column has 2 stars, so we can block those off. This column only has 1 star, but only 1 space left to put it in. So we put it there. Of course that gives us 2 stars in the row, which blocks that off and blocks that off. And now we're down to 3 over here. That's a star, that's a star. This row is complete. We can block that off. There we go, block that off because now we have this column complete and this should be the last star. 14 minutes, quite a long time. But that's a good example of a harder puzzle and how to think about it when it doesn't start you off with the super easy shapes.